Let's take a look at one of the more widely distributed modern Rider-Waite-Smith clones that's on the market today. The Pulp Tarot I see in almost every store that I go to that sells tarot cards, especially more boutique style stores that don't just sell metaphysical stuff. This is a unique deck in that it is particularly modern. And the way that its imagery, its presentation is embedded in pop art and pulp stuff has a very different effect on the viewer. Like, I really love that this looks like a pulp novel. But the way that people receive this deck is going to be different than what people see in a lot of traditional tarot decks that are developed around some kind of spiritual tradition, concepts that come out of religion and mysterious symbolism. The symbols and ideas that you see in this deck come right out of comic books, movies, pulp art, covers of trashy magazines and stories. They come from stuff that we have seen in our everyday life and is a lot closer to what the modern consumer of media is used to analyzing and thinking about and considering, well, do I really want to engage with this thing and buy it or not? There's a lot of concepts that have gone into marketing design that appear in this deck. So for those reasons, I have found the Pulp Tarot to be incredibly useful when engaging with folks who don't have a strong sense of personal spirituality, who think that religion is ridiculous, who generally don't want to look at concepts revolving around ancient spiritual religious concepts, but who are kind of curious about tarot and want to get a sense of what it could mean for them, what the experience is like. Like, this is the deck that I put in front of my dad when I was like, look, man, if you want a sense of some of the things that I see and enjoy about tarot in general, looking at these pictures is going to give you an idea of how that's organized, the impact that it makes on me, and it'll be something that is familiar to you. Now, in my tarot groups, we often talk about this deck because there are copies of it all over the place. Several of us have one. And some of my friends will say, well, it's obvious that the little white book that comes along with it was written by a graphic designer. Todd Alcott talks a lot about how much he was inspired by Pamela Colman Smith's work, and that's very clear throughout the deck. Many of the images are kind of updated versions of the Smith Tarot images. Though frankly, I kind of like Alcott's versions better than the Pamela Colman Smith's ones, because whereas Smith's drawings come out of a very European medieval type of setting that is not specifically identified as far as time and place goes, but that most Europeans could mesh with and make some sense out of, based on the characters and how they're positioned. Alcott goes a few steps further. He takes the images that Smith created and he puts them in not only a more modern setting, but a setting that is a little bit more rich with context, with intention, but still leaves a lot to be asked of those images as far as what exactly everybody wants and how it might apply to a particular situation. I feel like the Pulp Tarot is more approachable than the Pamela Colman Smith Tarot for the modern viewer, especially in a way that immediately grabs the attention and gives somebody a clear concept of, oh, I know what this is, and I've got some ideas about how this has applied to my life when I've encountered it before. And I also like that his little white book, often this sense of it being written by a designer is very front and center. But if you're familiar with old comic books and old novels, and generally the pulp classification of media, the language and the way that the situations and the cards are described goes right back to those pulp concepts. That things gotta hit hard and fast, you gotta grab the audience's attention, you gotta heighten the drama as much as absolutely possible in order to make people feel like they've really got a wowzer experience out of whatever you've made for them. If you've ever wanted to do a tarot reading that makes you feel like a Pulp Fiction detective, a knight in a pulpy fantasy story, this deck definitely gives that feel if you take a look at the book's descriptions along with the cards. So let's take a look at some of the images in the deck so you can see what I'm talking about here. So I've selected a few from each suit, and you'll see that each suit has a different kind of design theme. The font will be the same on every one. Some of them seem a little more like comic book covers, some more like novel covers, some more like posters. And I appreciate that there are a lot of design things that stay consistent from card to card within each suit. This Three of Pentacles I think is fabulous. We've got some guys looking over their plans to rob a bank, but why they are robbing this bank, the circumstances around it, whether they'll get away with it, does the bank deserve to be robbed, what kind of a community are they in? All these questions immediately come up when you look at an image like this. I also like that because these images are based on book covers and posters, the kinds of things that would encourage a person to decide, are you going to engage with this media or not? Do you want to read a crime novel? Do you want to go to a movie about a heist? This puts the viewer in this condition where they're thinking, well, what's really going to be in there? I mean, how many of us have gone to a movie because we felt like the trailer was just awesome, it was going to offer everything that we wanted, and then the movie was completely different, or it just didn't utilize the scenes from the trailer in the way that we expected it to, and so we were let down by that experience. Whereas experiences we've had when we've gone to movies where the trailer was delivered upon so accurately, so much better than we thought it would be, the stuff in the trailer really was just a tease to something we didn't even know that we wanted. Since most of us have had that experience, and these images mimic that whole form of engagement, the deck encourages us to think about what is behind and within the concepts presented on the cards in a much deeper way that we're already used to. So this modernizing of the Rider-Waite-Smith concepts, I feel like it works in the sense that it gives us depth and it connects to lived experience, which to me is incredibly important in any spiritual practice or any reading that you are doing. I really dig this Six of Pentacles in that we have the hand with the scales on it, the scales that you see in Pamela Coleman Smith's drawing, and it's a detail of one thing that's going on in the Smith image, but I feel like this detail gets across the entire intent of what she drew, but it also puts it in this very questionable setting of why does this person have scales tattooed on the back of their hand? This other hand looks almost kind of ghastly. It's pale. It looks like a clammy palm. There's an immediate contrast between the type of people who are behind these hands, and each hand tells a lot of a story that we've got to build on and go deeper into ourselves to complete in order to figure out what's going on in this card. And I think that's fabulous. Each card really gives us a lot to think about. I appreciate that in many of the cards in this deck, you have subtle references to other cards in the tarot world. So back here, I'm pretty sure that's the edge of the Four of Pentacles in Smith's deck. And the king is looking off to the side in a very rich environment, an older person who has stakes in what he does. His sense of ownership is clear. He is comfortable and yet continuing to consider his plans, his strategies for the future, and what he's going to do with what he owns. Other stakes on it. Who else might be interested in it? And what kind of partnerships are really going to pay off for him. Now, as opposed to that slanting font that went across the top of the Pentacles, the Wands font is a little bit more breezy, and whereas the Pentacles font to me looks more like the cover of a novel and kind of the way that those cards are arranged, this looks a little bit more like a magazine or a comic book. I like that in this Ace of Wands, and all of these follow the Pamela Coleman Smith design, the aces, in a pretty direct way. In the center of the hand, you've got this blue light, almost like lightning between the skin of the hand and the shaft of the wand. I love that play on energy, on excitement, on the sense of electricity that should come out of what's going on in this suit. This Three of Wands is one of my favorite portrayals of this card in any deck. We have a woman traveling in outer space, gazing out on an alien landscape. She is gripping the wand for support. It's clear that she's got to do something, but she's not really sure what exactly it is that she has to do. She is still assessing her options for action and where she's going to go, how she's going to utilize the potential, and how she's going to act to survive in a strange land. So this sense of openness and unsurety and excitement all comes across in this card. And here we have the Knight of Wands, a guy in a hot rod, showing this wand out his window as an extension of his own excitement at the way that he's driving this car, where it's balanced on just one wheel. The energy, the enthusiasm, the joy in capability that come across in this card, and also this sense of travel, of connection, of wanting to get attention, all makes a lot of sense in the context of the Knight of Wands. And I also really like the color design, that the font's in black and then that offers some symmetry with the shadow underneath the card. To me, it's a really cool way of setting up color to produce impact in the design. So really, Alcott put a lot of thought into the way that he arranged every one of these cards. In Swords, we have a lot more stability as far as the way that the lettering is presented to us. All of the cards have this sort of outset where Swords is in a square on the top, both bringing attention to the lettering itself and the fact that the suit of Swords is often about language, the way we express things, wanting to establish clarity in information and communication. And also giving him a chance to produce this crossed sword silhouette in the background, which in many ways is a reference to much older types of tarot decks. So in this Five of Swords, we've got a much stronger sense of a challenge, a protector, a defender, someone who needs to be challenged or overcome in order to get past this character. And the way that I see the Five of Swords is as an opportunity for us to bring ideas that we feel good about, we feel like we have worked on them to the extent that they can be worked on, and we're ready to show the world, get some response, get some thoughts from other people about their reflections on those ideas. If you're presenting something you've been working on to a professional community, an intellectual community, a group of students who also works on these ideas, this is often the kind of reception that you're going to get. They want to meet you as an equal, but they want to see what you can do. And if you're not ready to defend your ideas, to show where they are founded and that they have a strength all of their own, then they're going to end up just being part of what your challenger has collected as those that they have defeated. The Seven of Swords with this cat burglar opening a safe. You definitely get a sense that she is stealing from her expression, from the shadow behind her, and the fact that the picture is off the wall. She is looting a place. And this clearly reflects the sense that I give in the Seven of Swords, where ideas are moving around so rapidly and being used by so many people because of their distribution, it's impossible to tell who they really belong to. And the initial owner may not be getting the credit, the reward that they really deserve from creating these ideas, even though everybody is using them. And a great image on this Queen of Swords, we have this Joan of Arc kind of character. The sense of boundary, of protection, of personal strength comes across very clearly in this card, as well as a sense of enthusiasm about getting out there and doing what has to be done. I really appreciate the sense of capability that comes across in this Queen of Swords. And also that it is a clearly centered image. You have this beam of light that is right next to the sword, in many ways changing the context of the sword as just this martial thing that is used to hurt people, or even as just a tool, but also as something that represents light, something that represents authority that comes from beyond just a person holding a weapon. Now in cups, the C in the cups overcomes the other letters in many ways containing them. And I think that's a fabulous way to show the image on the card. These seem a little bit more like front pieces for novels than anything else from the Pulp period. Though some of them look a little bit more like posters. It just sort of depends on how Alcott put the image together. But I appreciate that the women in this Three of Cups, there are a lot of questions about what is in those glances, what their intentions are, exactly how emotion is going to move if a person were to engage with them as a group or as individuals. And those are the kind of choices that I want people thinking about when they are looking at the Three of Cups. The Six of Cups is one of my personal favorite cards. And I love how Alcott has kind of produced this cloth cover-like texture on a book, which many children's books were published with in the 40s and 50s. And this kind of archaic style of print that we've got in the two children outside of, a stately suburban house. It really brings forth the character of nostalgia, of sweetness in emotional connection that I appreciate about the Six of Cups. And here we have the Page of Cups. The character in it is looking away from the fish, out toward the audience. This has a very magazine cover kind of look to it, or much like postcards that a person would purchase on the beach or on a boardwalk at a lot of places throughout America. Most of these cards carry across a sense of strong Americana imagery that comes along with them, a lot of appeals to the past and memory. I feel like this card brings across a lot of that in the sense that there's an expectation set up here that when this picture was taken, wherever this woman came from or who she was, she may not have known what exactly this image was going to be used for, where it was going, and the kind of people who are going to interact with it. And I think that that reflects a lot of what comes across in the Page of Cups in the depth of the tarot tradition. Now, I will admit that throughout this deck, I feel that the cards from the suits are much more carefully developed than the cards from the major arcana or the trumps. And it's not that I dislike the way that they're put together. They are much clearly direct imitations of Pamela Coleman Smith's images. And also, I feel like they don't have quite the extensive character in the majority of them that you'll see in the suited cards. But I do like that they each kind of have their own font style going on, which brings across a lot of the thematic, the setting, the media influence that Alcott wants you to be thinking about when you're considering these major cards. I like this Lovers card in the sense that we don't have two people being united from the two sides of the card with the angel in the center, but rather they look like they're in trouble. Their union has produced suspicion. It has brought this angel along to let them know that they've done something together that they really should not have. And I really like how the snake kind of hangs over the angel in this threatening posture, and you have the apple front and center as part of the crime that these people have committed. Again, taking away from the strong spiritual sense that this whole image is invested with in the story of Genesis and Adam and Eve, and instead putting it in this much more 40s, 50s style, there's drama to be had in this situation, and you need to know more about where the drama came from and how it unfolds. The Justice card with this very Pam Grier-esque character in front of it, I think is just awesome. It reframes the sense of what justice is in a much more modern context, bringing forth underserved, undervoiced communities in a specific way that suddenly they had a voice in these movies created by Black directors, writers, producers, and actors, and their world entered into the media in a way that really shocked a lot of society and changed the way that they could express themselves. A kind of justice related directly to the media imagery that you see in this deck. And being a person who has a deep investment with the connection of tarot and games, I think it's fabulous that the Wheel of Fortune looks like a game box that you would find from older game printings. And this Temperance card is really, funny more than anything else to me. The fact that Temperance is in quotation marks, we've got half man, half woman, all angel, 1 foot on water, 1 foot on land, as if these are things that are supposed to startle us or surprise us. It fits in with a lot of sort of weirdo fiction in the pulp world. You'd had a lot of stories and presentations of media where it's just a discussion of this freakish character that doesn't belong in society or doesn't seem to make any sense, and how will they possibly proceed and survive in the world as we know it. To put temperance in this position of being the thing that breaks with normalcy and that would startle the regular world, to me makes a lot of sense in this pulp context, that to be balanced, to be even, to know how to navigate many worlds and keep things smooth is actually exactly the opposite of what you would expect from a pulp story, where you want the drama to increase and the danger and the action to get wilder and wilder as the story goes on. A temperate character would not serve that at all. And so in this way, the very theme of the card, in the way that it's framed, enters into that world of expectations and shakes it up on its own footing as a tarot concept. So if you're a person who wants to bring people into the tarot world that really don't have a lot of spiritual interests, or you want to be able to talk about tarot and make it as modern as possible, you really could do a lot worse than the Pulp Tarot deck. Because while it does have a lot of visual themes that give it a sense of thematic consistency, I don't feel like it's pushing any particular ideology on people other than that tarot ought to be fun, that it should be something that you can immediately relate to, that comes out of your own world, and that still has a past that may be a little bit suspicious, but in terms of the way that we view marketing, the way that we think about how to connect, well, this is the cover of the thing, but what's really inside? What will I really experience if I swallow all of it? It's something our brains are now doing unconsciously all the time. What does this marketing mean? Where does it go? So to place tarot in a concept that activates that part of the brain and makes it conscious, I feel like does us a great service in the way that we might do divination, help people get deeper into themselves, and get an inkling of what they really think might be going on by using exactly that part of their brain. Thank you very much for watching. I am available for tarot readings. I can be contacted through newelltarot.com, and I am more than happy to help you get deeper into yourself, your issues, to help you find clarity and move beyond whatever is troubling you. Have a fabulous day, and take care.